All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I have to say that my heart is overflowing with gratitude to all of you for being here today. I am Congresswoman Cori Bush of the great district of St. Louis. It's in Missouri. And we are here to celebrate the launch. We're working on Missouri now. We're here to celebrate the launch of the first ever Congressional Caucus for the Equal Rights Amendment. First ever. And so to those who came before us, whose example we now carry, we're talking about Mary Church Terrell. You'll hear these names probably over and over again. Pauli Murray, Barbara Jordan, Shirley Chisholm, Aline Hernandez, and Flo Kennedy. To my sister in service and my co-chair in this struggle for equality, who is a historic and visionary leader in our movement, someone who is a truth teller who helps us believe that a better world is indeed possible because she's making it happen even herself, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. To our former colleagues in Congress for their relentless work on the ERA, with special thanks to Congresswomen Carolyn Maloney and Jackie Spear. To my dear colleagues who are joining us today as founding vice chairs and founding members, to our advocates and labor unions who have been pushing even more, who have made this possible for equity, pushing for this equity for a whole century, and who will not let up in that push to achieve the equality that we seek through the door of equity. To congressional staff, without them, this moment would not be possible. So we shout out our staff. And to the members of the press and to our communities at home for joining us virtually, thanks to you all. Co-Chair Pressley and I are joining forces. We're joining forces to launch this caucus today because equality is overdue. Equality is overdue. And we are honored to be joined by our esteemed and aspiring vice chairs who I'd like to take a moment to recognize right now. Vice chairs that we have in attendance, Congresswoman McClellan, Congresswoman Chu, and I believe Congresswoman Kamlager-Dove may be here as well. He is here. And then additionally, we have Congress members that are our vice chairs as well, Balint, Barragan, Chu, who's here, Dean, Frankel, Horsford, Barbara Lee, Summerlee, Congressman Liu, Pocan, Raskin, Ramirez, and Spanberger. We are, all of those vice chairs from different parts, from different communities, different districts, different demographics. We are proud also to be here leading this push alongside a diverse and growing movement of ERA advocates who we have right here with us. In attendance, we have Catholics for Choice. We have the ERA Coalition. We have Equal Rights Amendment Project at Columbia Law School. We have Feminist Majority, Generation Ratified, and National Organization for Women, National Women's Law Center, and NARAL Pro-Choice America. Also supporting organizations that weren't able to be here, ACLU, the AFL-CIO, and SEIU International. This movement is growing. So we're here today because we believe it is time that Congress affirms the Equal Rights Amendment as the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. And we are organizing Congress by launching this caucus to make sure that equality becomes enshrined in the supreme law of our land. It is time Congress makes constitutional gender equality a national priority. It is time that Congress centers the people who stand to benefit the most from gender equality. We're talking about and including Black and brown women, the LGBTQ plus community, people seeking abortion care, and other marginalized groups. We're here because from the start, people like me and many of my constituents were intentionally written out of our nation's founding document. That ain't right. The absence of foundational equality allows discrimination to persist and injustice to fester. One example of this discrimination And injustice is the fact that on average, women make 77 cents on the dollar in comparison to men. Now, we've heard that over and over again. Yeah. So as striking as this statistic sounds, it only really became real to me when I sat down and I actually did the math for myself in my own life, and I realized exactly how much was missing. So I'm going to ask every woman that is watching this, you all, when you get home, if you haven't already done it, let's do the math. So we're going to walk through this math right here in this press conference. So you're going to take your yearly salary. This how, like, we real about this thing. Where is the sign? Where is the sign? Who has the sign? We got a sign. Come up here. Let's bring these signs up. Whoever else has a sign, here, come stand next to me. Oh, let's go over a little bit. All right, here we go. So there's another sign. Bring the other sign up, please. So you're going to take your yearly salary. If you are hourly, if you make hourly wages, then go to what your salary will be at the end of the year, after a year. Take your yearly salary and you want to multiply that times 100. Now you divide that total by the wage gap. So 80 cents if you are an Asian woman, 77 cents if you are a white woman, 64 cents if you are a black woman, 54 cents if you are Latina, and 51 cents if you are an indigenous woman. After you divide that total, that is the average salary of your white male counterpart doing the exact same work. Now, you're going to subtract your yearly salary from that number. That is the number that has been taken out of your pocket. So, for example, if your yearly salary is $50,000 and you're a black woman, on average, your white male counterpart doing the same work would make $78,125.
That ain't right.
That ain't right, because you make $50,000, which means you are owed $28,125 every single year. And if you think about how many years you've made that salary on that job, how much are you missing? That's money that could be in your pocket, but it's not. And it's solely because of your race. It's solely because of your gender, and because we don't have equality under the Constitution. We call that the sexism tax, flat out.
Preach.
The sexism tax.
Sexism tax.
And that ain't right. So when we look at all of these young people that are up here today, imagine how much they will miss out on as they pay the sexism tax year after year over their lifetimes. So I'll say it again, equality is overdue. What does equal vision for the future look like? It looks like pay for equal work, equal pay for equal work. It looks like protection of abortion care. It looks like accountability and justice for the 1 out of 3 women who experience some form of sexual violence. For us, equality is overdue. It is overdue, it's past time, and we need it now.
That's right.
Woo! Congress passed the ERA a long time ago, we know in 1972. And since then, leaders across our country have been working to get it ratified. And I'm so proud so many black women have been at the forefront of this effort. Why does she keep saying black women? Because folks didn't pay attention to black women being a part of this movement. They pushed them to the back. They made them stand at the back of the group and all of those things. But we're here to say not anymore. Black women lead, brown women lead. We're all leading together. We're making this fight happen all the way to fruition. Woo! So we're talking about folks like Pat Spearman in Nevada, Juliana Stratton in Illinois, and our newest colleague and incredible vice chair, Congresswoman McClellan, whose leadership led to the ratification in Virginia. 38 states have now ratified the ERA, and all steps necessary to amend the Constitution, they have been completed. And all that is standing in the way is some paperwork. The Archivist of the United States is the person who logs all state ratifications and publishes constitutional amendments. However, they haven't been published because of an arbitrary deadline. There can be no deadline on equality.
That's right.
100 years, and all we're asking for is 24 words, 24 simple words. The Equal Rights Amendment will add to our Constitution that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex.
That's right.
And let's be clear, denying us the 24 words for 100 years is intentional. It has been since the very start. So I ask people who oppose equality, why are you against it? What exactly are you afraid of? Are you afraid that black women and brown women, that Asian women, that women, period, because we've been brilliant even in our oppression?
Yes. Yeah.
Because we've been fighters and we've been excelling even with a foot on our neck? So are you worried that then we will in turn put our heels on yours? Your sexism and misogyny are showing.
Yep.
This caucus marks the beginning of a new era. So just look around. It's reflective of multiracial and multi-generational leadership. It affirms the centrality of black women in the push for constitutional equality. It reflects the power of our grassroots movements, without whom we could not do this work. And it serves as a reminder that our work is not done, that none of us are free until we all are free. This caucus, this movement we are building, inside and outside of Congress, this will be exactly what we need to get the ERA across the finish line, to achieve equality for all. Now, let's get to work. Now I would like to call up the honorable, the amazing Congresswoman from out of Massachusetts. We're talking about none other than my co-chair, Congresswoman Pressley.
Okay, now let me just say this. I don't have any problem following the leadership of Representative Cori Bush, whether it's an occupation on the Capitol steps, first time ever happened to affirm housing justice, or whether it's in the establishing of this Equal Rights Amendment Caucus, first of its kind. But I do have a problem with following her on the mic. So I wanted to tell that whole truth, okay? But I'm gonna do my best to hold my own here. Representative Bush was saying that her heart was full, and I think it's important to lift that up, because I think people often misunderstand our righteous indignation in the face of injustice. It comes from a place of deep love, of radical love. It comes from a place of joy. And so although the struggle is real, so too is the joy in this movement. And so it is a great day to come together. I'm thinking a lot about my 14-year-old daughter, Cora, and how I do not want her to continue to live in a country and a world where we have so conflated and normalized the disparate treatment and outcomes and disparate access and the second-class status it is to be a woman in this society. It's so normalized. We've conflated it as a part of our experience as girls and women. If you were to ask any girl or woman if they could share an experience where they experienced discrimination, they might struggle to articulate that, because it has become so normalized and such a conflated part of our existence. I do not want that for my daughter. I want better and more for her. And so that's why we come together in this moment, shoulder to shoulder in this fight, to affirm the dignity, humanity, and equality of every person. Now, these past few days, we've gone to the House floor a number of times, twice now, to give those long overdue flowers to our ancestors and sheroes who championed this noble cause before us. And again, as Representative Bush said, you will hear these names over and over again, in particular black women and queer advocates like Shirley Chisholm and Barbara Jordan and Polly Murray, who advocated for the Equal Rights Amendment in the halls of Congress. And those who for years have organized and mobilized outside the halls of Congress and these halls of power are equally deserving of praise and recognition. This is one movement. And so we thank the agitators, we thank the activists, the organizers, the mobilizers, the disruptors. We thank you. We thank you for your leadership. We thank you for your partnership. We thank you for your sweat equity. We thank our colleagues in government, Representative Jackie Spear and Representative Carolyn Maloney, who recognize that it was time in their retirement, when they passed that mantle over, that it's important that this movement in this moment be led by and led by those and centered by those who stand to benefit the most from the passage of the ERA and who have been ignored, left out, and left behind in our founding document, and often not given the credit they deserve in this fight. So we paid that tribute to many of these sheroes in the People's House to register officially into the Congressional record their contributions to the movement, because for so long we have either been erased or relegated to a footnote in history. And so I hope this representation, this demonstration here today of a truly multiracial, multi-generational coalition affirms that there will be no erasure any longer. We are proud to lead and to stand with this diverse, inclusive, multiracial, intergenerational coalition of justice seekers, table shakers, pace setters, and movement builders, organizing relentlessly to enshrine gender equality into our Constitution. And this is on the centennial of the ERA's introduction in Congress. We stand stridently to demand that Congress do its job and affirm the Equal Rights Amendment as the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. I'm proud to launch this brand new, first of its kind, Congressional ERA Caucus in partnership with my partner in good, Representative Cori Bush, because congressional intent is a powerful thing. And congressional caucuses are a powerful tool for moving issues and key policies forward. As the proud chair of the Pro-Choice Caucus Abortion Rights and Access Task Force, I know firsthand how critical these platforms are to building support for reproductive justice both inside and outside Congress. And the ERA caucus will be no different. We'll use every aspect of our shared power to advance the priority of gender equality and get this done. We will use the power of the pen to finally make the Equal Rights Amendment the law of the land. We will use the power of the platform to educate our colleagues and the public about the history of the ERA and the work that remains to be done. This is not a thing of the past. This is not the fight of the past. This is a fight of the present, here and now, and this movement is alive and well. Right. We will use the power of convening to bring together activists, experts, scholars, and more, always centering the voices of those who stand to benefit the most. And we will use the power of the movement to build a powerful and transformative moment to achieve real and lasting change. Why? Because we don't just organize and mobilize when we have the gavel or when we're in the election cycle. After 100 years, it's clear we must continue to organize and mobilize to get the ERA across the finish line. And having this congressional caucus will be critical to that. So again, I want to thank my fellow founder and co-chair, Congresswoman Bush, and our founding vice chairs for their partnership and their leadership in this historic moment. Where we are doing today truly is epic, and it is timely, and it is necessary. With women and LGBTQ folks facing daily sexism, pregnancy discrimination, pay inequity, sexual violence, and persistent legislated attacks on our bodily autonomy, we need the ERA now. Right. I truly look forward to the day when calendars will say, and on this day in history, the ERA caucus was established. But I really look forward to the day when our calendars will say, on this day in history, the ERA was passed. That's right. Let's get it done, y'all. Equality is overdue. And now we'll invite one of our incredible vice chairs who, she's allegedly a freshman, but there's nothing freshman about her. She's hit the ground running. She just got here, Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan.
Thank you. Well, if you think it's hard following Cori Bush, try following both Cori Bush and Ayanna Pressley. None of you are going to remember anything that I said, but I am happy to be here and thank Representatives Pressley and Bush for your leadership in forming the ERA caucus and convening us last night and together today. I am Jennifer McClellan, and I was one of a multi-generational coalition of women who got the ERA ratified in Virginia in 2020, and it took a multitude of women, including members of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, who are here today on the Hill, and it is fitting that our first public act as a sorority was the March on Washington for women's suffrage. And yet we were told to march in the back, but we were there. Black women have been in this fight from the beginning for rights and equality. I'm the history nerd of the bunch. So I'm going to take you on a little journey through history. It is poetic justice that Virginia was the state to put the ERA over the top, because Virginia was the birthplace of American democracy, founded in July of 1619 when the House of Burgesses first met. A month later, the first Africans, including the first African women, arrived on our shores with no rights. They were considered property. A few months later, British women, English women were recruited to be wives, who, when they arrived on our shores, had no rights. Any property they had was surrendered to their husbands. They couldn't vote. They couldn't run for office. But from the beginning, women have been fighting to make true the words, "we the people," to include us. To make true the words that all men and women are endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights. Black women have been in that fight from the beginning. We have often been the last to benefit from our work. No more. We are taking the reins and the leadership to lift up all women and all Americans to ensure equality finally. While we were working on ratification, I ran into my child's Sunday school teacher, Mr. Martin. He was 101 years old at the time. And he said, "I don't understand why it's taking so long for the ERA to be ratified. Well, you always listen to your Sunday school teacher." I said, "You're right. It's past time. It is our time. And we are here today to say the states have done their job. Yes. It is time for the archivist to do his job. If we need congressional action, then let's take it. Because it is past time. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of fighting the same fights that my mother, my grandmothers, my great-grandmothers fought.
That's right.
I will not leave those fights to my daughter.
That's right.
Or yours.
That's right.
Or our sons.
That's right.
With your help and our leadership, we will make this happen. Thank you all for joining us today. Let's get to work. Oh. And it is my pleasure to pass the mic now to our fellow Vice Chair, Representative Judy Chu.
Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, and I had to be here for this historic moment with the founding of the first ever Congressional Equal Rights Amendment Caucus. And I want to thank the incredible leadership of Representatives Cori Bush and Ayanna Pressley as we carry on for our goal of making the ERA the law of the land. It is unbelievable that women were deliberately left out of the Constitution. The founders viewed us as second-class citizens, and we were denied basic rights like voting, owning property, or even holding most jobs. Now, we've made great strides since then, but we still are not equal. Even today, women face pregnancy discrimination and disproportionate rates of sexual violence, and we still are paid less than men for the same work. But all too often, women are unable to fight back against this discrimination in court. That's why we have to enshrine in our Constitution equal rights for women and for all people, regardless of gender. The founders were wrong about women, but they did build a system into our Constitution to right the wrongs of the past. Already, the required 38 states have ratified the ERA, and the vast majority of Americans support it. So let's make sure that we finally pass the Equal Rights Amendment as a 28th Amendment to the Constitution. Let's make sure that all women are equal under the law.
That's right.
And now I would like to turn it over to an incredible Congress member from California, Sidney Kamlager-Dove of California.
Thank you, and I am so proud to stand here today with all of my female warriors especially my Congressional Black Caucus colleagues and the co-chairs of this caucus, Representative Cori Bush and Representative Ayanna Pressley. They never say no to fighting for what's right. It is indefensible that 100 years following the Equal Rights Amendment, gender equality is not the law of the land. Without protections granted under the Constitution, women, especially black women, brown women, indigenous women, LGBTQ women and people, and those at the margins of our society are continually subjected to discrimination. So today, we are making it absolutely damn clear that this must be a national issue. You might have written us out, but don't count us out.
That's right.
As vice chair of this caucus, I stand ready to defend the liberties of those who would benefit the most from having the 28th Amendment added to our Constitution.
That's right.
Abortion rights are under attack. LGBTQ rights and freedoms are under attack. The health and economic well-being of black and brown women are under attack. Hell, having a vagina right now is under attack. And being black and brown and indigenous and Asian and needing health care and working for $1 but not getting it back is something we have to continue to stand up to and fight against. So today we are saying no in every single language. It's a no. Stop walking over us, because we have shown you that we are not going anywhere, but that this sexist, misogynist policy must go.
Yes.
I look forward to working with the leadership of these amazing women to make sure that the ERA is enshrined into our Constitution once and for all.
Right. So
Okay, it's a mic drop, and now who's next? Summer Lee from Pittsburgh.
Oh. I love going. I don't know about everybody else. I'm always happy to go after fierce women who are going to burn down the microphone, because that's exactly what we need. Let me just start by saying 110 years ago, Congresswoman McQuillan mentioned it, my founders of my sorority marched, and she mentioned to you how they had to march from the back. But I thank God that black women, even when they're made to stand in the back, lead from the front. Lead from the front every step of the way, because without that intersectional, bold, tenacious fight, we wouldn't be where we are now, even as we recognize that we have still yet further to go. But I'm glad to be here. And I'm honored to stand here, not just as the first black woman from Pennsylvania in Congress, to stand with incredible, powerful women who have founded this caucus, or this iteration of the caucus, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and Cori Bush. I thank you for your boldness, your joy, as you mentioned, your fearlessness, and for giving me the opportunity to help in this fight. It isn't shocking that this document, written by these rich land-owning white men in the 18th century, do not protect my rights and the rights of these bold women who you've heard from today, or our LGBTQI plus siblings. It's not shocking that that document saw that my black ancestors were property until the 19th century, and women as second-class citizens until the 20th legally, that it doesn't prohibit discrimination against people who look like me or our queer constituents. It's not shocking that a document that did not allow women the right to participate in our democracy through voting, let alone the right to have a land or a bank account until the 20th century, is in need of an update. What is shocking that in the year of our Lord 2023, we still haven't updated our Constitution to include equal rights, even in the face of a nonstop attack from Republican politicians and judges hell-bent on tearing away our bodily autonomy, marriage equality, and every other hard-fought right. And I remind you, hard-fought right and earned. What is shocking is that our Constitution still does not include equal rights regardless of sex, meaning our Constitution still does not reflect or protect all people. What's shocking is that It is fully legal for Republicans to tear away Title IX requirements for equal opportunity in education, to oppose Violence Against Women Act, the Fair Pensions Act, and the Paycheck Fairness Act, to vote to pay for Viagra for servicemen, but oppose funding for family planning and contraception and pass bans on our bodily autonomy. So yes, I stand here today pissed off that it's not obvious to all elected members of Congress that the rights of all women, specifically Black women, need to be protected. As we are wrapping up Women's History Month, I remain steadfast in making sure that our future daughters, our current daughters and granddaughters to come have more rights than we did, not less.
That's right.
As one of the vice chairs of the ERA caucus, I will fight tirelessly for a constitutional amendment so that our daughters and granddaughters are not discussing what we failed to do in the 21st century. I'll fight tirelessly to move us one step closer to enshrining the dignity, the humanity, and the equality of all people into the highest law of the land. To the right-wing politicians and judges waging a full-on assault on the rights of women and queer youth, we're not afraid, and we won't be silenced. We're organized and we're mobilized to make equal rights the law of the land. Because every woman, girl, and femme, and trans person deserves leaders who will fight for them as hard as the activists, as the agitators, and as the organizers fighting for our rights back home. So I thank you for being here today, and let's get this one done. To not follow Sydney Calm like a dove. Okay, I would like to introduce one of our stalwarts, one of our fierce leaders, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of the Lee Caucus.
In the Christian faith, many times we say where honor is deserved. So let me give honor to Congresswoman Bush, Cori Bush, and Ayanna Pressley. Thank you so very much. We give you honor. We give you honor. Let me, as we tend to do when we visit our constituents, make a proclamation. I proclaim this day is long overdue. I proclaim this caucus is long overdue. Right. I proclaim America is long in the suffering of women. That now is the time to begin to understand that we've been equal, but you've not seen it, and now it must be done. I proclaim it must be done. I want to read to you just a portion of the resolution that so many of us are proud of. If you've heard these dynamic women, and I'd be in trouble for not calling all their names, my namesake before me was capturing all of the emotion and the spirit of all of this. But this says the article of amendment proposed to the states in that joint resolution, and the dates were in this, is valid to all intents and purposes as part of the United States Congress and Constitution, having been ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states. What I would argue is it is already done. It only needs to be done. It is already done. And we come here today in organizing this caucus to reinforce in a loud and shrill voice. Often women are described as being shrill and talking. And we're going to move across America, and there will be shrill voices, and they will be talking, and they will say the words, it is already done. It is already done. Let me be clear about what equality means. We've already noted that those of us who are descendants of enslaved Africans were not made equal, and women were not made equal when this Constitution was written. But let me ask the question about equality. Were women equal when they fought in every war since the Revolutionary War? Can't hear you. Were women equal when they took the burden of fighting to ensure this nation was the greatest nation in the world? Were we equal? Were we equal when we took care of families and went to work? Were we equal when we took care of those in the sunset of life at salaries that were less than able to provide for our families? Were we equal in terms of carrying the load? Yes, we were. We're not equal in terms of the treatment that we got. Were we equal when we lost our limbs and legs in combat in the recent wars of Afghanistan and Iraq? Were we equal? Were we equal when we marched and stood for those who could not speak for themselves? Are we equal mothers when we lean over our babies that have lost in gunfire? When we take the pain? We have taken the brunt of equality without any recognition. We have stood where others have not stood. We have suffered pain where others have not. When we didn't get enough Social Security, when we were not able to stay in nursing homes, we were treated poorly. Women have been the backbone of this country because they've sucked it up and they've kept on going. And so I believe it is important that we say to women today, we will not take you for granted anymore. We will not deny you the rights in the courtroom. We will not go back to the old times when you could not get a house unless you had a man on the signature. You cannot rent an apartment. Or when there's domestic violence in the name of someone who is domestically abusing you, even today as we've tried to pass that law, you go out, you cannot stay if the abuser has their name on the apartment. There are some iterations of what discrimination is that many of us do not see. And the women beyond the boundaries in places and nooks and crannies who are suffering, they need this. They need the Equal Rights Amendment. They need to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Yes, to be a patriot, but also to be recognized decently and in order for who they are. This resolution and this caucus is well needed. And in the final words that I offer you, I want to make sure that we say it again. This amendment, this constitutional amendment is valid, not to be valid, is valid for all intents and all purposes as part of the United States Constitution, having been ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states. It is done, it is done, it is done. We must do it, and it is done. It is done. God bless you all.
And the doors of the church are open.
Yeah, okay. It's my honor and privilege to bring up Delia Ramirez. Our sisters are from all walks of life. She brings her enormous leadership. We are Hispanic, we're African American, we're Southeast Asian, we're Asian Pacific, we are others, we are Caucasian, we are everything. We are patriots. Please come, my dear sister. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Whew. I gotta start in Spanish to try to. It's hard to follow such an incredible leader for all of us. First of all, let me say a few words in Spanish. Mi nombre es Delia Ramírez y soy la congresista del tercer distrito en Illinois, que representa 47% de la población latina en el estado de Illinois. Y en esta tarde tan linda estamos aquí porque entendemos que podemos continuar diciendo que hay equidad y que las mujeres tienen los mismos derechos que los hombres, pero la realidad es que si tú eres latina en este estado, en este país, en todo este país, por cada dólar que tú trabajas, solo recibes 66 centavos a ese dólar. Quiere decir que si tú eres latina en este país, tú no puedes recibir lo mismo que un hombre va a recibir por el mismo clase de trabajo. Y por eso es tan importante que estamos todas aquí juntas. Latinoamericana, afroamericana, asiática, blanca, no importa tu raza. La Constitución debería proveer protecciones para todos sin importar tu género. Y por eso estamos aquí y por eso estoy tan contenta de poder ser parte de esto con mis colegas y con las dos personas que están encabezando este trabajo, que son la congresista Bush y la congresista Pressley. Así que a trabajar se ha dicho, y cualquier persona que quiere venir a decir que va a celebrar el mes de la mujer, si no vas a ser un auspiciador para que la ley cambie, para que las mujeres tengan igualdad, no vengas con hipocresía diciendo que celebras a la mujer. Para mí es muy importante, haz lo que dices, no solo digas lo que no haces. The fact that 100 years have passed since the Equal Rights Amendment was first introduced underscores the urgent need for today's launch of the Equal Rights Amendment Caucus. We have been celebrating International Women's Month the entire 28 days of March, and we're about to wrap up. And as I said in Spanish, if you are posting little screenshots, you're posting graphics, you're celebrating women in your district during this month, but you are not a co-sponsor of the ERA, well, shame on you, you hypocrite. Stand by what you say. Because the fact that it has been 100 years and you are so good about, Latino Heritage Month, you all of a sudden care about migrants, right? Black History Month, all of a sudden you say, well, I'm not a racist, I know a black first person. We continue to see people saying one thing and doing another. It is important that the harm and injustice against women, black, brown, indigenous people, LGBTQ+ people every day in our communities, that we are clear that that is a policy choice that is preventable. And I'm grateful for our founding co-chairs, Congresswoman Bush and Congresswoman Pressley, for their leadership. And I'm proud to join them in responding to this collective call to action as a vice chair. We've amended the Constitution 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I got a minute, so 27 times, right? It's long past time that we do it the 28th time so that we can celebrate equity and not just talk about it during International Women's Month, that gender equality belongs in the U.S. Constitution, full stop. With that said, I'd like to introduce to you another one of my colleagues, Congresswoman Dean.
Well, I'm delighted to be here with these incredible, powerful women and this terrific audience who I have a feeling believes in the same thing. It is long overdue. Yeah. I think of it in terms of my own family. My mother was born in 1922. This amendment was introduced by Alice Paul, born out of the suffragette movement in 1923. My mother would have been an infant. Here we are a century later and we still haven't gotten it done. I now have 3 granddaughters, 11 down to 1, so that century is weighing on me heavily. How is it we have not protected the rights of all women, all girls in this country, regardless of race or creed or color? Equality is not debatable. We were born with it, and words matter. We must be explicit in our Constitution as well. For those who forget, here are the words of this amendment. It couldn't be simpler. It couldn't be more obvious as a right. Quote, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. That's it, folks. Those few words should be embedded, emboldened, emblazoned in our Constitution. It's not complicated. After a century, it is so long overdue. We know that the Equal Protection Clause by itself is just not enough to protect women in American courts. Look at the assault on women in this country. The gender pay gap, the lack of paid family leave, child care costs, threatening or banning abortion care, limiting access to reproductive drugs, and so much more. The 19th Amendment, as we know, left far too many Black and minority women out. I think of Ida B. Wells, Sojourner Truth, left out. The Equal Rights Amendment will leave no one out. Equality for all should not be a catchphrase, but a reality in this nation, an absolute reality. So I thank all of the women leaders of today and the thousands of women leaders who came before us in this fight. I will thank today's chairs, Reps Pressley and Bush. Boy, oh boy, would Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm be proud of you both. Just a little. And so many others, we are proud of you. And I look forward to serving with the other members of this caucus, because this Congress, we will get it done. Equal rights for all women. Thank you. And now, it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce, I think it's Generation Ratify, am I right? Yes. Gen Ratify. Rosie Couture, Claudia Natchez, and the students who have joined us today from Gen Ratify. Take it away.
There we go.
Hey, everybody. Hello. Thank you, Congresswoman Dean, and thank you to all of the representatives before us, especially Congresswoman Bush and Congresswoman Pressley, for your dedication to and leadership on the Equal Rights Amendment in Congress. The young women and queer people of our country are excited to work together, to organize together, to advance our equality in the Constitution. My name is Rosie Couture, and I'm a freshman in college from Arlington, Virginia, and I'm a co-founder and executive director of Generation Ratify, a movement of over 12,000 young people organizing for the Equal Rights Amendment.
Okay. My name is Claudia Nachega. I'm a senior in high school, and I'm from Maryland, and a co-executive director of Generation Ratify. All the young people here want to make one thing clear. Although the movement for the Equal Rights Amendment is 100 years old, The movement for the ERA is a young people's movement. Because as young people, we have the most to gain from action and the most to lose from inaction. Every single organizer in our movement has a story to tell about why the ERA matters to them. Here are some of our stories.
We are students at schools that protect sexual abusers over our safety. We are survivors who have been failed by weak Title IX protections. We are students who have missed class because of our periods and sexist dress codes. We are young people who must have control over our reproductive health care, including access to abortion and contraceptives, to stay in school and pursue our dreams.
We are queer youth whose identities and right to exist are under attack, from Don't Say Gay laws to the banning of health care for transgender youth. We are youth of color, persevering and uplifting each other as we highlight the unique struggles and racial disparities experienced in the fight for gender equality. These are just a few stories of why young people are in our communities, in the streets, in the courts, in the state legislatures, in the White House, in Congress, to push for our constitutional gender equality. Whether it's attacks on abortion access, transgender youth, or Title IX, young people, young women, and queer people understand that the Equal Rights Amendment is a necessary tool to defend our lives.
Yeah, it is. And we are ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with our congressional allies in the ERA caucus as we organize together for our constitutional gender equality. Woo! And we are so excited to bring up Zakiya Thomas, president of the ERA Coalition.
So I don't know about you, but I'm very excited. Look behind me. Look at all these faces, young faces, old faces, people from every walk of life who believe in one thing. We deserve equality in the Constitution on the basis of sex. That's why we're here today. So I'm Zakiya Thomas, president and CEO of the ERA Coalition and the Fund for Women's Equality. And on behalf of our over 208 partners and 80 million people that we represent, I want to thank Congresswoman Cori Bush and Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley for championing the Equal Rights Amendment and for leading the ERA caucus. We all know that the ERA has overwhelming public support. Nearly 8 in 10 Americans across both parties support an amendment granting equality for all. And as we mark the 100th anniversary of the introduction of the ERA into Congress, we have never been closer to having sex equality guaranteed. We've always had champions in both chambers of Congress, yet this is the first time that we have a caucus dedicated to the Equal Rights Amendment. I'm especially proud that this new chapter is being led by dynamic and impactful Black women, continuing a long tradition of leadership and advocacy. And this caucus represents the very essence of the Equal Rights Amendment. This amendment is for everyone. Everyone who supports equality is welcome, and this diverse group is unified, working together to ensure sex equality so that all people, all communities, and our economy are free from the burdens of inequality creates. Today, the rights we have relied on to protect women and communities of color and the LGBT+ community are being rolled back. The Dobbs decision shows that a majority of our Supreme Court wants to interpret the Constitution as it was originally written. As my colleagues have said, a time before women and people of color could vote, own land, or otherwise live as free individuals. The majority of us up here would have been considered property when the Constitution was written. So if we want to see ourselves in the Constitution, we have to put ourselves there. That's why we're here. That's why we need the Equal Rights Amendment. The ERA would empower Congress to protect against discrimination for all people, and I do mean all people. Men, boys, transgender individuals, as well as women and girls. It's another tool we can use to make our system fair and equitable for everyone. A necessary step towards fixing a system that's been broken for too long for too many people. And like the Congressional Caucus for Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA Coalition is a unique movement of movements. We bring organizations together from across the country and across sectors, many of which are here today. We know that we are stronger together. And though each of us focuses on different aspects of improving society for everyone in our nation, we are united by our commitment to making equality under the law a reality. Yes. Together, we represent a diverse, intersectional, and intergenerational community advocating for gender, racial, and reproductive justice, LGBTQ+ rights and civil rights, and so much more. We are mobilizing millions, and we are proud and honored to stand with Congresswoman Pressley and Bush and their fellow ERA caucus members and advocates across this nation to make the Equal Rights Amendment a reality. We invite you to stand with us to unleash a new wave of advocacy built upon intergenerational and intersectional partnership. So the Equal Rights Amendment Caucus is 100 years in the making. Let's get this done for all of our families, all of our communities, and all of America.
That's right.
And it is my honor to introduce Jamie Manson with Catholics for Choice.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairwomen Bush and Pressley, for your prophetic leadership on the ERA. These are radically challenging times for the reproductive freedom movement, times that call for radical, bold action. And that is what the ERA caucus offers us. The ERA gives us a permanent solution so that fundamental freedoms will no longer be vulnerable to capricious courts, new Congresses, or the occupier of the White House. We need to ensure that the situation we find ourselves in now never happens again. The only permanent answer is to change the Constitution by finalizing the ERA, which has been validly ratified and should be acknowledged as our 28th Amendment. This is not speculation. Right now in multiple states, state-level ERAs are blocking abortion bans. And that's not all the ERA will do. As a lesbian whose gender expression is proudly queer, I am gravely concerned about the onslaught of attacks against my community and the signaling by the Supreme Court that they are poised to take away our most fundamental rights. The ERA provides a bulwark against these very real threats. As Chairwoman Bush powerfully declared on the House floor last night, we have waited 100 years for the 24 words of the ERA. That is all the ERA is, one abundant sentence. And it will not only protect women, it will protect people who experience discrimination on the basis of sex, including our transgender siblings, gender creative folks, non-binary people. It is as expansive as it is inclusive. I stand here today as a Catholic, lesbian, queer woman to say that people of faith, including Catholics, overwhelmingly support abortion rights, support LGBTQ rights, and yes, we support equality. Yes. We want and need the ERA, and we are so close. Thank you, Chairwoman Bush and Pressley, for heralding a new day for the ERA and giving all you have to finally getting us across the finish line. Thank you. And it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Minnie Timaraju from NARAL Pro-Choice America.
Thanks, Jamie. I'll keep it short. You've heard all the main points. You've heard a lot of compelling speakers. The ERA is going to be a critical step towards ensuring equality and protecting our fundamental rights. And let's be clear, including our rights to abortion and contraception. The Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe ended the constitutional right to abortion as we know it, and it's allowed states to enforce abortion bans, dealing a dangerous blow to reproductive freedom. From bans on abortion being enforced in 17 states to a federal lawsuit, which we could have a decision any minute now, that could effectively ban access to medication abortion across the country, even in blue states, even in states with codified protections. The threats to reproductive freedom are urgent. You know, the bottom line is this. I said I was going to keep it short. The bottom line, without the freedom to control our own lives, bodies, and futures, meaningful equality will remain out of reach, and that includes reproductive freedom. That's right. So everybody, no matter who they are, where they live, must have the freedom to make their own decisions about their lives, their bodies, and their futures. So we're proud, NARAL Pro-Choice America and our 4 million members in all 50 states. We're proud to be part of the coalition. I'm honored to support the new leadership of this newly formed caucus. Thank you so much. And as the first woman of color to lead NARAL, I will just say personally how just emotional it is for me to see these amazing leaders, Bush, Pressley, my old friend Judy Chu, all these amazing leaders of color coming together for this new generation, and all these youth activists. Yes. It's so important as we move forward, right, that we have a coalition that looks like the future of our country, and that we have leaders who are the generation most impacted by these bans. So thanks for standing with us. We are proud to stand with you. Oh, And then I am so proud to introduce my dear friend, the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center, Fatima Gosgraves.
Thank you, Minnie. I'm Fatima Gosgraves. I'm president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center, and today just really feels like a historic day. I was sitting in the back thinking, first, if Representatives Pressley and Bush create a container and give us marching orders, I'm pretty sure things will start moving, and so it gives me a lot of confidence. But it is also the case that we're creating this caucus in the midst of the most brazen attacks on women's equality that we have really seen in a generation. And I don't know how we can live in a country where we say that we are equal if we can't control our bodies, lives, or futures. Right. Just full stop. So make no mistake, though, we're born equal, but it is our systems, it's our antiquated laws, it is cultural norms, it is a culture that says I don't value you. That's why we need to enshrine the ERA into the Constitution.
That's right.
So let's do that. Let's put that explicit guarantee of equality in the Constitution, and it will help us move towards a world where all of us can be free in every facet of our life. And I also just want to say the ERA, it really should be the start. It should be the baseline. It should be the minimum. And I think the leaders who are leading at the forefront of this know that. They are dreaming well beyond the baseline of equality. They are dreaming of a world and a culture where we all can thrive. And I am just glad to be a part of it. So on behalf of the National Women's Law Center, we are excited and proud to support this caucus.
All right.
Well, I'm so sorry. And now we'll introduce my friend Ting Ting Chang from the ERA project at Columbia Law School.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Oh, my goodness. Woo! Oh my goodness, this is such a moment. Thank you so much. I'm Ting Ting Chang. I'm the director of the ERA project at Columbia Law School. We're a law and policy think tank, and we bring rigorous academic expertise to bear on the hardest, the most important questions surrounding the final ratification of the ERA and what it means to have a new and explicit sex equality protection in the Constitution. It's an honor to be here to mark this historic occasion, along with visionary leaders in Congress and tireless advocates to spearhead the path for modern equality. Let's be clear, we are here to correct a mistake. We're here because the drafters of the Constitution intentionally left out women, people of color, Native American people, and immigrants, and many other people from our founding document. A lot of the people here standing today. We're here to affirm the ERA as the 20th Amendment and also to recognize full citizenship regardless of sex, once and for all. The ERA could model an entirely new approach to equality, a 21st century form of equality, and not just a pink version of the inadequate standards contained in the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. Sometimes you hear people talk about how the ERA can bring strict scrutiny to sex discrimination, but this is aiming too low. We have to dream, and we're here dreaming together. Why would we want to embrace an ineffective version of equality that has delivered very little when it comes to dismantling race discrimination in this country, and instead has been interpreted to protect the rights of white men to retain their privilege? The Equal Rights Amendment, after all, is something new to add to the Constitution, to change it, to improve it, and to update it. Instead of a sex-blind approach that's embraced by our current courts, which does not account for the social, the economic, the political, the cognitive dynamics that create and perpetuate sex-based inequality, we can reimagine substantive equality through the ERA that addresses systemic and structural forms of inequality and considers discriminatory effects of a law and not just the written intent.
That's right.
At the ERA project, it's no surprise to anybody, but our research has shown that the benefits of existing equality measures have been distributed unequally to center the rights of white women and to further marginalize women of color. It's our job to craft a new 21st century sex equality paradigm to adequately account for the ways in which sex and race discrimination intersect with one another, in which sex and deliberately center the voices and lived experiences of women of color. Like we all have been saying, the ERA is for everyone, particularly for people who form the backbone of our society and our economy, who serve as our societal safety nets and who don't have a safety net for themselves. The ERA will do that.
That's right.
As we do the work of amending the Constitution today, it's important to note that nearly every single amendment became a part of the Constitution happened in irregular ways, right? So the ERA is no exception. It's actually the norm. If we start to question the validity of the other amendments to the Constitution, many would be invalidated as a result. Opponents of sex equality want to single out the ERA and say it's over, it's dead because of the legal issues, while at the same time accepting all the other amendments adopted in spite of their legal issues, right? This is discrimination, pure and simple, and this further affirms why we need the ERA, why the ERA is so important in the first place. The fight for the ERA is not just about us, it's about the foundation of our democracy itself. Yes. So I look around me today and I see a vibrant, multi-generational, diverse group of change makers. This gives me hope. We are reflecting our rich democracy today, and I believe that together we can and we will and we must achieve transformative change through the ERA. Thank you. All right. It's my pleasure to introduce Bear Atwood of the National Organization for Women.
Now members know that Congresswoman Bush is right. The drive for the ERA is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Now adopted a resolution in support of the ERA at our second annual conference in 1967, and our boots are still laced and our spirit is undiminished. It's no wonder that a document written by a small group of rich, privileged men, some of them slave-owning, would be so ignorant of women's equality and rights. But it is unconscionable that a century after the Equal Rights Amendment was first introduced in Congress, there is still no protection for individuals against discrimination on the basis of sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation in the United States. Yes. Fixing these laws is not only proper, it is essential to the continuation of our democracy. Yes. You might say that the original inspiration for the ERA caucus was now member Representative Shirley Chisholm. On August 10th, she delivered a celebrated speech called Equal Rights for Women on the House floor. Speaking about the ERA, she said, "It provides a legal basis for attack on the most subtle, the most pervasive, and the most institutional form of prejudice that exists. Discrimination against women solely on the basis of their sex is so widespread that it seems to many people normal, natural, and right. But it isn't normal, it isn't natural, and it isn't right. And its time has come. Now is proud to stand with our allies, partners, and like-minded grassroots activists to support the ERA caucus and stay in the race for the ERA. We will have constitutional equality. We will strengthen our rights and strengthen our democracy. We have the ERA now. And it's my pleasure to introduce Ellie Smeal from the Feminist Majority Foundation.
I think I'm just about at the end, I hope.
You are.
Anyway, this is a historic day, and it's so magnificent that Congresswoman Cori Bush and Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley have done this historic step of starting this ERA Congressional Caucus, but not only starting it, but affirming right from the beginning that the ERA is valid and it has been ratified.
Yes.
Woo! And so I asked people who said, how do I feel today? And all I can say is, I've waited a long time, but we've been organizing. We haven't been just standing there. Not only the 100 years, I can qualify that for the last 50 some years, day in, day out. And because of that organizing, because frankly, it's so right. It's unusual for me to use the word right wing, but right. It's so strongly and needed that we now are, and this is so exciting to me. When we got it through the House and the Senate, about 58% of the public was with us to 60%. I saved all the old polling, so there will be today that number is over. Now it depends on how you read it. It is definitely 3 out of every 4 adults, or 75%. But if you look at different segments, if you look at young women, which we thank goodness you outnumber us here, it's really close to 80 to 85%. Wow. And I mean, we're almost a consensus. We're like, who do we have to convince? We don't have to convince anybody. We got to take the power. We have to get registered, recorded votes. And if we don't make it, we make sure those votes disqualifies re-election. And I mean that. Power is what it's about. We've had the public opinion, and we're going to have it even more day by day because of the outrageous behavior of the radical right that is trying to deny women their body rights. I mean, give me a break. They who know what. Anyway, it's very, very important. I wanted to say to you, I think it's an understatement for a person like me to say I'm happy this day. It's been so long coming. And it's still not here, but we can do it. And what I think we have to do is make those polls come alive in every district. Make them know what they're doing. They're denying people economic rights, biological rights, everything you can think of. And they have the audacity to have one of their not their chief justice, but one of the justices, the person Alito, who wrote the opinion, to say that equality is not deeply in the roots of our country, and therefore there is none, and there is no rights under the Constitution for women, and all genders. There is no rights, is what he would say. How can this happen that he's a Supreme Court justice? Has he not noticed that we are more than equal? So, on this wonderful day, let's not forget it. Let's make it happen. It has happened. That's what's so confusing. It has been ratified, for God's sakes. And I'm glad you're going to be so aggressive in making it be enforced. By the way, I do think that the second little part of the ERA, everybody's read to you the first section. The second section gives Congress the power to enforce this. And so that's why this Congressional committee is so important. It's not only important to get everybody to realize it's been ratified, it's also important to pass legislation to enforce it. Thank you very much for all you've done. Thank you. You are magnificent, both of you, and all of you wonderful young women. And just remember, the gray hairs will be there with you too. We're not going to give it up.
All right.
On to victory.
That's right. All right. We want to thank everyone for being here. Thank everyone for coming out. We will open it up for a couple of questions. The time is already pretty spent, and so I know people have to go. But we want to open it up. And let me just say, if your question is a question that Generation Ratify, that our youth can answer, we might just toss it to them, because you got to know just how amazing these youth are. So, all right.
Congresswoman, I've interviewed a number of Republicans about this, your critics, who basically say that this could open up unlimited abortion access and also bring lawsuits against churches and other religious organizations. What would you want to tell them?
Honestly, I would say that first of all, it's very customary in Congress that we will lead on policies that even our critics stand to benefit from, and I'm certain that the women in their lives have experienced the disparate access and inequities and injustices that we enumerated here today. And so we're used to fighting for things that people attempt to obstruct, but stand to also benefit from. So that's just par for the course here.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Oh, somebody. Okay. All right. Thank you all.